Welcome to Unexpectedly Successful. Join us to hear the raw and genuine stories of women founders who have created their own pathways to possibilities.
Hey there, welcome to Unexpectedly Successful. This is Griselda Martinez, your host, bringing you stories full of inspiration and experience so that you can become your own business owner. Do you want to hear about the secrets on how to go from having a dream of having a detailed business to now owning the leading business, training the future detailing business owners in the nation? Come on, let's go meet Sherry today.
Please help me welcome special guest with us, Sherry Gladney. She is the founder of GI Clean Detailing. Their mission is to offer detailing services for commercial and residential, including cars, boats, planes, and also pressure washing. All of this is located in Orlando, Florida. So if you ever need services for detailing, you have your people here. Sherry, it's an honor to have you here. Welcome to this podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing amazing, better than I deserve.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So Sherry, to get us started, can you please tell us a little bit about you to set the stage for the raw and genuine stories? Tell us what you, being you, means to Sherry.
Oh, wow. Well, that has changed as I have evolved. I am 51 years old. So, you know, what that means now versus what it meant 30 years ago is very different. But me being me is just embracing all the facets of myself in a way that allows me to just live life freely. I have somewhat of a big personality. And when I was, in my younger days, I'd say, I'm either for you or I'm not your cup of tea, one or the other. There's no in between, And as I grew older, I just learned to choose my circle wisely and surround myself with people that love the way I love. And so, at this point in my life, it's, being me means being a wife. Being me, it means being a mom. I have 3 beautiful children, one 17, about to be 18. I have a 14-year-old girl, and then my son, who is 12. So my plate's pretty full. I call myself Uber Mom, so if that counts.
That's okay.
But I really enjoy life, and I really enjoy my life with my family and my friends. I feel very enriched and I feel very blessed. So just surrounding myself with people that accept me for who I am and love me for who I am, that's what it means to be me these days.
That's awesome. You dropped so many gems there that I'm going to go back to later in the conversation. You mentioned a comparison between the Sherry from 30 years ago to now, and you have a big personality. Mm-hmm. What have been defining moments tied to those pieces of information you gave us, or experiences for you as a person?
Wow. I would say definitely one of my biggest defining moments was around the age of 25 when I gave my life to the Lord and decided that I would do a deep dive into what it meant to be a Christian. And it changed everything for me. It was the game changer. Didn't mean I didn't have struggles after that, but at least my life was on the path that literally from the core of my very being, I knew I was on the right path to understanding why I was put here. Now, I didn't know all of it then, but that's where the road opened up for me.
Wow. And you mentioned path. With that word, Sherry, tell us a little bit about how your path as a business owner started, as a founder of a business.
Yes. So I went away to Bible school, which is where I met my husband. And he had served in the United States Army for 12 and a half years. And he got out the year that we got married. And we decided to move to Florida. And upon doing that, he was kind of in this space where he had to kind of reinvent himself because he had been in the military, excuse me, for over 12 years. So I don't know if you know anybody that's ever gotten out of the military. It's like, okay, now what? Like, what's next? You know, it's almost like they're starting over.
A very crucial decision moment for you as a family as well, right?
Absolutely, because here we are. We're newly married. We knew we didn't want to have children for about 2 years. We wanted to wait a little bit. We didn't meet each other until 30 and 31, so we didn't have a lot of time. But we took those 2 years to really just embrace the idea of marriage and what that meant for us. And in that time, we both moved to Florida and decided that we were going to start a detailing business. And at the time that we moved here, I was about 7.5 months along with my daughter.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we moved and I was like, Florida stinks. I can't take it because, you know, your senses are so like, I just, did I come here? Did I make the right choice? You know, but literally from the time we started our business here in Orlando, business literally doubled almost overnight. Because what we realized was this was a market where detailing was a highly valued service that could be performed year round. So there wasn't any shutdown time like in other cities that have seasons, winters, sometimes fall, you know, those kind of things can disrupt the detailing business a little bit. You just have to get creative with other ways to offer services. But for the most part in Orlando, it's year round. So I literally sat down, Griselda, to the computer and created a Word document. It was a flyer that said what we did, our prices. I wish I had that document to this day.
That would be precious to have.
Oh, yes. And literally started out of the trunk of my husband's 2-door Camry at that time.
Wow.
The market, the sponge, some Walmart's auto washing soap, and the flyers, and we went out. I hit the pavement, and I was literally out to here with baby, putting flyers on doors, and so that's where we started.
Wow. So Sherry, you mentioned that your husband was getting out of the Army. You moved to Florida, and then you as a family were transitioning as a whole, right? How did the idea come about? Why detailing?
You know, I'm glad you asked that question. So my husband, we were in Bible school together.
Hey, husband.
He didn't know I was online.
Don't worry, this is a raw and genuine stories.
So the idea for detailing, my husband was sitting in class one day at Bible school, and as he was exiting the military, he was already thinking, what am I going to do next? And he just heard the word detailing. Well, in his mind, he was like, detailing, what's that? So he literally had to go and look up the word detailing to find out what that was. And he grew up in Mississippi, and they had a farm, and they washed their own cars. They did everything. So he's very manual. He's a manly man, you know. He's like, wait a minute, I can do that. I can wash cars. You know? So he came to me, he says, what do you think about starting a detailing business? And I was, what's that? You know, same thing. So once I found out what it was, that's how I knew what to put on the
Oh my God. From the definition of detailing. Exactly. That's how you got a hold of your copy.
Yes.
Wow, that's right.
20 years later. And it's just evolved from that. And I'm sure we'll get to it. But yeah, it just started with an idea that he heard from God. And then we looked it up and we printed some flyers. And a lot of it, the first year was learning by trial and error. But we learned a lot. We learned to work smarter and not harder. And yeah.
What an amazing story on how the idea came about. So do you remember when you said we're starting a business? Can you recall the feelings, the moments, the emotion, the thoughts that came to you in that decision?
Yeah. So initially, I was obviously a bit concerned because we had always discussed that for our family, everybody's different, but for our family, that when we began raising our children, that I would be home for the raising of our children. And so my thought was, well, what does that look like? Because, there's only so much money, especially when you're starting a business. So initially I did double duty. I worked for a doctor's office. I was a certified medical assistant before I met my husband before I went to Bible school, right out of high school. I didn't go to traditional college. I went to trade school and then went to work. So,
wow.
So I stayed in the medical field, and then we started the business together. And eventually, the detailing business was stable enough for me to pull away from my job.
How long was that period between you launching the business and then you transitioning full time?
Probably could have pulled away sooner, but I felt comfortable about 2.5 years. Yeah, I needed certainty. Women, we need security. We need certainty. And I don't know how this works in other people's homes, but when the money is plenteous and when things are connecting, there's peace in the home. And when it's not, not so much. So we wanted to make sure, that we were going to be okay and that we were good, because our dream, of course, now we own our home, but at that time we were renting. Our dream was to own our own home. And so we wanted to position ourselves to be really appealing to banks, because sometimes being an entrepreneur is not very appealing to a bank when you go to purchase a home. So we were thinking about long-term goals as well as bills that we were facing right then at the time. So yeah, it was a lot to consider.
A lot of strategy and long-term planning. Sounds like it, Sherry.
Absolutely.
Wow. Okay. So you mentioned that you went to trade school and you worked there full time. How did you see that experience building and adding value to then what you did through your business?
Oh, wow. There was so much I gained. My employer was so empowering. She valued me. She valued me very highly. She esteemed me very highly. I was very, very good at my job. But I didn't realize I was good at my job. I just thought, oh, this is just being Cherie, right? But I literally was the face of the office. And when people came in, I was the first person that they seen and the last person that they saw when leaving. And I did my job very, very effectively and at a very high level. And when she began to take notice and tell me how she felt, and actually she showed me, right, with increases in pay and everything.
That's great.
I began to kind of believe, like, wait a minute, I just might be as good as she think I am, right? So then I began to function at an even higher level. Like, it was my goal to give really great customer service. And I had this thing where I would, even when I was answering phones and scheduling people to come in for appointments, I would do it with a smile on my face so that my face was brighter, right?
Wow.
And so I had come across some information about, I think it was something like work yourself out of your position or something like that. The mindset was do your job at such a high level that you have to be promoted. Like, it's just,
wow,
it's inevitable. And so I did. I poured my whole heart into what I was doing while answering the phone, scheduling. I had actually become the office closer. So people would come in, they'd be presented with a plan, and I would have to go in, explain the plan to them, and also convey the value of doing this for themselves so that they could get to the healthy place that they wanted to get to.
Wow.
And all of those skills I use now in my business. It's so crazy. Like, who knew that God was using that time in my life to prepare me to run a successful business. And when I tell you, we hit the ground running and we've never looked back. Every year, year over year, we've increased since the day we started.
Wow, for 20 years.
20 years.
Wow.
Every year we've had increase, even through the pandemic. And that wasn't because we, when the pandemic shut down, there were certain businesses, right? They were essential. They had to keep going regardless.
Mm-hmm.
So during that time, we picked up a contract for 35 to 40 semi trucks that were essential. They had to be done every week, right? Look at that timing, right? And so we took on that contract. So that helped us to keep our employees working throughout the pandemic so they could still provide for their families as well.
So you became essential because you were serving an essential business.
Absolutely.
Wow, that's amazing. And what an opportunity when so many were struggling, right?
And even going into the semi trucks and cleaning them, we had to be very, very careful because numbers were very high at that time. It was a lot to manage because the last thing that we wanted was for one of our employees to get sick on our watch and then take it home to their family. It was just a very trying time. But we through and kept offering great service. And we still have that contract today. So
congratulations. That's really cool to hear, Sherry. So going back to what you said about this employer you had and that moment where you said, it may be true that I am as good as she's saying. So tell me that before and after that moment in terms of your confidence.
Yeah, I went from being a person that questioned every single thing I did. And a lot of these things come from our upbringing. I'm not going to give you my whole childhood, but a lot of these things we kind of carry with us from the framework that was set as a child. And so I never wanted to get it wrong. So I questioned everything I did, everything. Well, after she began to empower me that what I was doing was awesome, I didn't question so much. I just kind of, maybe I can trust my gut. Well, maybe my instincts are right more than they're wrong, And as I started believing that, then I came home and I'm like, telling my husband, my boss says I'm wonderful, Hey, do you appreciate me as much as my boss, Yeah, it even spilled over into my home life and how I showed up for my family as well. You can't be excellent in one area of your life. It's going to bleed into other areas. And sometimes we just don't give that 100% commitment to what it is that we're doing. When you seed that thing with 100% commitment, it's going to sprout growth and bear fruit in other areas of your life. That's what happened with me. And I just began to kind of wake up to who I was, which was totally aside from my business, but it helped me to develop as a woman, and to understand my value and how I wanted to show up to the world. So
what you said about you questioning at some point, and then you said, maybe I shouldn't be questioning. And you mentioning that it bleed into other areas of your life. How did that impact, from your perspective, how you approach being a business owner, a founder?
Because even when you start your business, in the back of your mind, when you have low self-esteem or you value yourself low, or you don't really understand what it is that you bring to the table, it kind of can convey to your customers, this kind of desperation for the service, if you will. You know that your service is worth, let's say, $300, but, I'll just take $100 because you want the business so bad that you just undervalue what it is that you bring. And after working with her, I realized, wait a minute, I'm much more valuable than what I'm even reflecting in my rates. And so our rates went up. Yes, our quality of service went up because we started purchasing better equipment. Remember, I talked about smarter, not harder. We figured out we're doing this the hard way. When you learn more or you learn more, you do better, right? So we started to increase our rates. And guess what? People paid it without a blink of an eye. They paid it because they wanted good service. Wow. Their mission didn't change from day one, and our mission didn't change from day one. We want to give good service. They wanted to get good service. The part I was having a challenge with was that in between of, well, do you think they'll pay? And so we had to really kind of elevate our thinking about what it was that we gave and what we offered. When we got that locked in, we realized we were underpricing. We brought our rates up, and that's how we've kind of, we didn't know what a report was. You know, the report that comes out that tells you the earnings for companies, and we never paid for that. You know, it's just, but now we're paying attention, you know. We've got inflation in this area. This means our products are going to go up. The soap's going to go up. The waxes are going to go up in price. We have to make adjustments so that we are not taking a loss. But when you don't know your value, you'll just take whatever's handed to you.
Wow. So there was a huge mindset shift there. Sherry, you just mentioned something really important for any business that a lot of businesses, as you said, don't want to see the numbers. Tell us about the numbers for your business, how you learned about it, how you realized the importance, and now how you do numbers for your business, as you mentioned.
Yeah. So for us, we're at the place now where, and every business gets to this place where you no longer can effectively function as a mom and pop unless you want to stay there, right? Some people just want to offer to the very local service that they're where they are, and they have, you know, a specific demographic that they want to serve, and that's fine. But for us, we envision a lot bigger for GI Clean. So in making steps towards this new build out and this new plan, we had to look at our numbers. And so we had to start looking at what's happening in the business industry as a whole, what's happening in the market, what's happening in businesses. And so we had to kind of look at the trajectory of business to understand where we would be able to set our focus and attention for our ROI, like how much can we actually look to gain in year 1, year 2, year 3. So that forced us to look at numbers, to look at what we've done for the past 20 years, to look at what the market is doing, to get a realistic perspective on what we would be able to earn and how soon we'd be making money versus paying debt service, those kinds of things. So it kind of forced us into some thinking that we hadn't had before. And that comes through team. We didn't have it all, right? But we pulled people close to us that were geniuses in their area. You know,
I love that.
He's like all things procurement and numbers, and he's that guy. So we pulled him in. We have another guy that's a really great friend of ours. He's good with logistics and management. So we pulled him in. We have another young lady, actually my sister. She's just great with accounting and numbers. She's an accounting degree. She was able to look at us and pulled her in. So no, we didn't have it all, but together we have it all. And so sometimes you outsource and pull in the different elements and different people that are probably already in your life, and you don't realize that they have these areas of expertise. And we pulled them in and started having Zoom meetings and just kind of mining through what it would look like to have this new model of what GI Clean would be in our imagination of this new big idea.
I love it. I love this, like just seeing your excitement as you walk back into those moments. I love it. So a few questions from what you just said. The first one is how this idea, this vision change over time. You touched a little bit, but then you said over the years has changed. How has that changed? And you as a founder, as part of it.
So when I started, when we started, it really has evolved, you know, every couple of years, just organically, because we realized that Products have changed. Equipment has changed. A lot of things are really geared towards the detailing industry, right? So we have a real place in the market. Before it was like you kind of had to figure some things out. How do I, what's the easiest way to dye this carpet? Because that stain isn't coming out, right? So now they have all these things in the market that make the task of detailing a lot easier. So it's really about, for us, it was really about evolving as the industry evolved and staying on the cutting edge of what's happening in the detailing world. So much so to my husband, he's literally, I don't mean to brag.
Please brag.
Expert in the detailing space. There isn't anything about detailing that he doesn't know or doesn't have access to. And we're big about, hey, if I don't know it, I'm going to know it. I have access to it, right? And so him being that type of person has now he wants to develop a detailing school.
Let's make a pause there. Okay. Can you repeat that?
So we are now looking at starting a detailing school where we will train individuals from all over the world. They will come and do a week-long training and get certified in all the areas that is necessary to be an effective detailer. So they will hands-on training and then leave with a certificate. And we're also looking at some point allowing them to franchise if they'd like to. So we're really pushing forward to not kind of be the mom and pop anymore. We're ready to just spread our wings and fly. So yeah.
Wow. I have a lot of questions as follow-up to that, but I'm going to go back to another point that you made earlier. In your journey, you talked about pulling people who were geniuses in their areas. How did you go about being resourceful and acknowledging that you did not have the expertise, but it was something you needed, and then be a go-getter for that?
My husband has always been the type of businessman that he wanted to pour into other individuals. So we've literally had, we've got one guy I'm thinking about in particular. He came to us and said, hey, I want to start a detailing business, but I need you to teach me the business. So my husband, he took him, he taught him what equipment to buy, where to buy his vehicle, how to do the work, everything. So those guys like that, the phone still rings today, and they run into and they'll bounce it off of my husband and say, hey, how do I remove this spot without damaging the paint, right? Or blah, blah, blah. Me, I'm more back office. I'm accounts receivable now. I make sure all those numbers line up.
You manage the important things.
The actual detailing, my husband's a genius. And so they come to him. We have another guy, he came here. My husband took him to the auction, bought his truck, took him to the equipment places, literally drove him from place to place to get his equipment. And he took his van back fully equipped, drove it back. He has a brick and mortar now, several vans. He's doing great. It's been about 5 or 6 years since he set him up, but I mean, he's doing amazing, right? Detroit, Michigan. And so these are the kind of things that kind of push you into other thinking, like, hey, you're not just a detailer. You're a little bit more than that. Here's your social proof, right? You've taught this one, they're all successful. And now they point back to you and say, it's because of what he showed me. And so that's what kind of pushed us to start thinking outside of the box and thinking a little bit bigger when it came to the detailing space.
So you haven't even started your school and you already have testimonials.
Yeah.
Wow. Cherie, you talked about examples of how you as a business team have helped other individuals. Why do you do that? And then it's so opposite to that thought of, I'm not going to share my knowledge because they're competition. What is different? Why do you do it the way you do it?
Well, the first thing is that I would say to that is that I couldn't have met a better match for how I like to give. My husband and I are both givers. And his philosophy behind teaching others this space was that it's way more detailing than there are detailers. So there's more than enough for all of us to detail and eat well. And so that's the first thing. And then the other thing, he's just always been one to want to give back. He's a pastor, so he it's his heart that wants to give back. Now, initially, I have to say, I had questions like, are we going to tell him everything? And he's like, yeah. And one of the things that made us so secure to do that is that because we offered such great service, Griselda, literally we have clients now. We've retained. Now, we moved here in 2004. It's 2023 now. We have clients that are original clients. So there's about 10 to 15% of our client base that are original.
Wow, for over 20 years.
Exactly. So when you do great service, you don't have to worry about the next detailer coming along and stealing your client. So our client base was so solid that we really didn't have a concern for teaching somebody else what we knew because we knew what we offered.
And with that said, Sherry, it reminds me to what you said earlier about you understanding your value, right? That transferring to the value of your business that is so crucial for us to really be confident and go forward.
Yeah, we gave 100%. And, how we ended up, I don't even know how we ended up. Our client base, literally, Griselda, is the who's who in Orlando. And so you say something like, everybody eats Smucker's jelly, right? We'll say this is just an example, hypothetical. But yeah, our client base will be the Smuckers. Like, or the Johnson and Johnsons. Oh, that's the grandson of the Johnson, And so from that, we started with those little flyers, right? That I put on Word.
Mm-hmm.
And we just happened upon a neighborhood that looked like they could afford our service. And then they just started telling their friends, and then their friends started telling their friends. And before we knew it, our client base was rock solid with people, very high earning people in Orlando. And so we kind of grew our reputation from there. We went from having just white box vans to having them wrapped. We were some of the first detailers to do that in our area. We were very intentional not to have a very cluttery look. Sometimes we mess ourselves up. I'll see people in their vans and their units, and it's so busy you can't see what they do, right? You can't see what they offer. So we wanted to have a very clean commercial look, and it worked for us. It really did.
Wow.
From wrapping the vans to having a very clean look. The calls were coming in more than what we could handle. And we actually had to start outsourcing to these other retailers that we were training and say, hey, can you take on another vehicle today? We're full.
Wow.
We never had concern about it. So we just kept giving out and God kept pouring in.
Wow. I'm going to make a pause here and I am going to ask a very important question to this podcast. Were you expected to be this successful, Sherry?
Oh, no. In fact, I didn't even, honestly, I didn't even expect to be this successful. I didn't know what the future held. I didn't know if detailing would be a stepping stone to what God wanted us to do next, whatever that next was. But just based on our backgrounds, my husband and I, we're just grassroots people. Like we both grew up poor. We both grew up where neither of us have college degrees to that extent. We both have ministry degrees, but we didn't go to traditional college. He went to the military and I went to trade school. So to all intents and purposes, we didn't, in society, we'd look like the people that were going to be, on the struggle bus for the rest of their life, And God said different. I'm not saying that we're rich, but we are comfortable, and we are very adamant about continuing to press and push the limits of of complacency and being comfortable in our business and seeing what God has next for us. Because there's definitely a next. There's always a next.
Wow,
Yeah.
I am so excited to see what will be next for you, because you sound confident, you sound certain, you sound clear. And one of the things that you've been saying throughout this conversation is your ears are open, your eyes are observing, you are just looking for where the opportunity is. You listen to your clients, you put yourself in their shoes, right? And it sounds like that's being core to your success.
Yes, and connecting with our clients. Literally, in the early days, I mean, our employees go out now. In the early days, when it was just my husband and I, he would go out and he would spend 20 minutes in the driveway talking to the little old lady. Because why? She wanted someone to talk to. He never shunned anybody to say, oh, I don't have time. So everybody that received his service felt like they were a personal friend. Do you know what I mean? They felt like Anthony was a personal friend to them. And so what that did was established a level of loyalty that we didn't realize. As the market changed and other detailers came into this industry, kind of watching us from afar, you know, we'd have detailers that would pull us and flag us down. Oh, I love your unit. Can I just see the inside of it, please? And we pull up. Oh my goodness, everything's so organized. And what's that? And how do you know? And he would always take time to and empower them and encourage them. And so, you know, it's just you have to live a life of giving. When you do that, I mean, because you may not be able to be a philanthropist and give away $1 million, but you can give time, you can give a listening ear, you can give advice that will help someone to, you know, make what they do tweaks, you know, give them ideas for tweaks that'll make it a little bit better. And I believe if you continue to sow that kind of seed in the earth, I believe God's obligated to bless you back. That's my personal belief. But I believe that when you give like that, that you'll receive the same way and more.
And, you know, I'm just thinking as you're describing these situations in which you've helped others become better, be more prepared, the impact that you have had in their business, in their lives, and therefore in their community, their surroundings, which is a mindset of abundance and giving, as you said.
Yes. So my husband and I have always been people oriented. So the fact that we are now pastors is not a surprise, because our heartbeat has been to serve people and then see the impact. You know, the one detail I was telling you about that has his fleet now, and he came to us and learned the business. He has a family and children. And to see them thriving and doing well, and to know that we were in the seeding process of all of that, it's just a very huge confirmation that we're in the place where we're in the industry that we're supposed to be in, and at the same time, God can use our giftings, right, to just flow and flow into other people and bless them in a way that. Be tangible. Like his children are growing up, and it's just amazing how that when you just take the mindset of not gimme, but take time to give, what that could produce.
That's awesome. Okay, I'm going to take a turn here.
All right.
Tell me about one of the most challenging moments in this 20-year journey in your business.
There have been some of those. So
tell us about it.
Yes, in the early years, I realized very quickly, well, not very quickly, but I realized over time that a part of my assignment to my husband is to be his cheerleader. Because there were times when the bills were rolling in, and in the detailing space, there are these, we've learned it now, but early on we didn't quite catch the pattern, but there are these ebbs and flows of business where if you don't manage in the plenteous season, right? It's almost like being a tax preparer. If you're a tax preparer, you better have a real good plan for what you bring in between January and April to kind of for the rest of the year, right? Well, we didn't realize initially that the detailing space had certain months until we looked at the numbers. When we talked about that, we looked at our QuickBooks and we were like, well, that's a pattern, because last August things kind of increased and things kind of dropped off in June, and it's done that every year. And so we started realizing, after stressing and during those times when business would drop off, my husband is a go-getter. He'd be like, well, I'm not going to sit around. I'm going to get a job. And I would, no, that's going to take time. That's going to take from your time. Your time is your most valuable asset. You've got this. And I start doing my cheerleader. You got it. We got this. And then we'd sit down and we think of something. Let's come up with a special or whatever. And we figure it out, and we try it, and it would work every time. So it was just about keeping each other encouraged, because the other area that we have never seen lack is, since we got married, we've never seen lack in our marriage, in our home. So, I mean, before that, we were on the struggle bus, both of us, right?
Wow.
I was always trying to make sure I had enough for the light bill and make sure I had enough for the car note and da-da-da-da. But when you're in God's plan and in his will, and you come together in his purpose and you're in his will, he's going to bless what you put your hand to. And I really feel that's what we experienced. So when we came together, we were just like, okay, we're going to live within our means, whatever that looks like. We're not going to be doing all this extra stuff. No debt. We're not going to be out here taking on, they had things like, when we first moved into our first rent home, you could have this sofa and you could not pay for 2 years and no payments until, whatever the 2 years is from now. And we look at each other and go, because we had a plan to live within our means. Literally, when we first started, I was getting WIC coupons to get milk and baby food for our daughter. That's right. So to see God move us from there, and we just had a commitment. We created this envelope system, and the envelope system had envelopes within the envelope, and we had an envelope for entertainment, an envelope for savings. If we wanted to go out, we had to go in the envelope and see what was going to work.
That's commitment.
$50 in the envelope. Guess what? We're going to dinner, but it's going to be at McDonald's. That's our entertainment. That's it. Until the next influx, until we can put in again. And so we created things, and we came up with things that helped us live within our means. But I think a lot of people, they get themselves buried so deep in debt that they can't breathe. And that's another thing that people don't tell you. When you're trying to build your business, your credit, you have to have decent credit, or they're not going to give you a second look. And so we had to kind of build that. We didn't come in with that. Both of us came to the marriage with some stuff that we had to get in order. But we said, once we got together, we were not going to take on new debt and make frivolous moves that didn't make sense financially. And so if it didn't fit within our realm of what we could do in cash, we didn't do it.
Sherry, on that, I mean, it takes so much discipline and intentionality, right? But you said something about debt. What would you say, and debt and money being tight at the same time, but then you keep moving forward. What would you say to the business owners out there, or to the aspiring entrepreneurs that think that money is the stopper?
When you're a business owner, when you're an entrepreneur, you have to be a lifelong student, right? And so we just learned, literally probably 3 years ago, what business credit was.
Wow. After 17 years of operations.
10 years of building and carrying this on our personal and paying cash. We didn't even realize, if you had said Duns and Bradstreet, we'd have been like, what are you talking about? We had no idea that your business credit is separate from your personal credit and operate completely different. Whereas there's a certain amount of debt to income ratio on your personal credit that you can carry. Well, on business credit, it's not like that. And so we began to build business credit, and that was the game changer. That was the game changer for us. So it's not about how much cash you have liquid. It's about the ability to create and build wealth through business credit. A lot of businesses thrive and function on business credit, and they do very well.
What about to get going? I'm thinking that you did not have thousands and thousands of dollars to get started. How do you do it?
Wow. Well, I mean, for us, literally, I'm not exaggerating. We went to Walmart. We got a bucket and a sponge and a jug of soap.
And that was your detailing business, huh? Ta-da!
Yeah. And so now here we are, several vans on the road, going to homes, performing these services, employees checking in. They clock in on the app. I can see where they are. They do the service. The customers pay through the app. I balance my books. I mean, it's a whole thing. But it started right out of the trunk of a two-door Camry. So it's about having determination that nothing will stop you, right? And offering good service. When you couple those two things together, determination and great service, it will produce an awesome business.
A recipe for success. And then getting to know your numbers, huh?
That software will keep you aware and afloat.
Awesome. What do you wish you had learned, done, or said sooner?
If I had known earlier in our business journey as entrepreneurs about business credit, we would be much further along. And I say that because business credit and having that accessible capital gives you quantum leaps. As it took us years and years to build, we could have had a lot sooner and a lot faster. But what we wouldn't have had is the understanding, the knowledge, the wisdom, and the work ethic that we have as a result. So I don't take it back. I don't take any of it back, but it would have been faster and easier. So now when we teach our new business, we say, okay, here's the way we learned it, but here's the way we're going to show you how to do it so that you can have the quantum leaps that we didn't get to have. We had to learn through the school of hard knocks, but we're going to give it to you so that you can move faster and further.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So, Sherry, you've talked about how disciplined you've been as a household, as a business owner. You know your numbers. You listen to your clients, you stop to talk to them and listen to what's going on in their lives. What routines you have started and have kept that have helped you be a successful businesswoman?
For me, it's been about balance the entire time. Yes, I love my business and I love my clients, but there at a certain point, I don't answer the phone. Usually that's about 6 o'clock because my children need me. And I've always been very intentional about the time that I give my company, the time that I give my family, including my husband, and the time that I give God. And I try not to let those things overlap because everything needs its own time. When I wake up at 6 a.m. on Wednesdays to pray with my sister, my kids are trained. Don't knock on mommy's door if you hear her praying, right? But at the same time, yesterday morning, my son, the 6th grade band was playing for chapel at his school. He's like, Mommy, can you come? I'm going to be playing my clarinet. It's the first time I'm performing, da-da-da-da-da. Did the business need me? Yeah, but I forwarded the calls. Son, I am there. Right. And so I was there. I was present for him. And if you could have seen his face when he looked up, saw me, and so when I was done, I returned all my calls. I did what I had to do for the business. But you have to be intentional about having balance, because one thing about entrepreneurship, if you allow it, it will take every single moment that you give it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I didn't want to be one of those that burned out and crashed and burned and hated what I do. I love what I do for my family. I love what I do for my business. And I believe the key to success has been balance. Now, I don't give as much time as I need to. I need to kind of layer in some self-care because that's important too. And so, I just kind of really got a lot of focus around that after going to a conference last week. And the question was asked, do you have a self-care regimen? And I was like,
What is that?
I get my nails done sometimes, or, that's not self-care. Self-care is taking time to allow something to pour into you, something that can do something that gives you life or that fills your cup, or right. I think a whole lot of routine. I get it here and there, but it's not very consistent. And so that part I need to work on.
All right, Cherie. So what are you planning to do? Share with us so we are prepared for that as well.
Well, I do like to go to the water. I like to go to the water and sit by and just kind of see the ripples of the waves. And I like to write music, but I just don't give a lot of time to it. Right. And so I'm going to start making time to get to the water. We have many bodies of water, countless of water in Florida. I'm sure I can make sure I get to one of them and give myself some time to just spend there. And I mean, uninterrupted time, because I go now and then, but even when I go, if a call comes in for work, I'm going to take it, right? Because I'm going to be available for my customers. But these times will be built in and they will be uninterrupted. So
very good. Very good.
And then I want to start getting massages, but we'll work to that. I don't,
So Cherie, you've said it in public, so we're going to hold you accountable for it. I want to capture this because it's so important to why we entrepreneurs are entrepreneurs. What are you most thankful about from being an entrepreneur, a business owner, that you would not have if you were an employee?
I am so thankful for the freedom.
Tell us about it.
Yes, the freedom of entrepreneurship allows you to be present for things outside of the business, like, for example, being there for my son, or I had to take I have a daughter that's going off to college, and we had to take some trips for her to do auditions out of state. And so I didn't have to go and say, hey, this may not be that important to you, boss person, but I really need to fly with my daughter 3 or 4 times this month to take her for auditions for college. These colleges are very important to her. And I didn't have to do that. I simply had to set things up to run smoothly so that I could step away, maybe do some call forwarding and whatnot, but I didn't have to. I had the liberty to be there and be present for my daughter. And the process, we had bonding time. It's a very different year for us because this is our first child going off to college. So there's mixed emotions. You want them to spread their wings and fly and experience the world, but you want to keep them and hold them and keep them safe and all at the same time. So it's the best of times, the worst of times all together.
Yes.
And as a mom who's been very, very, I'm very close with my children. So it's a very emotionally all over the place time for me. Just seeing acceptances come in, rejections come in, just all this stuff that goes with this time period. And I've been able to be present and there because of the freedom of what we've built. And so
present.
Yes. It allows you to be present. And yes, the trade-off is, sometimes you got to work a little bit harder. Sometimes you don't necessarily know when that next thing is coming in. But you just trust and believe that your hard work will pay off. And it just does. It just does.
Awesome. So you talked about your experience as a business owner and being a mom. And it's intrinsically important those two go together, right? As you mentioned from the very beginning, when you were pregnant and then going through all these transitions and now one more, but you're able to be present. That is so powerful. That is so powerful. So for closing, Cherie, What would be one word you would use to summarize your journey as a businesswoman?
Oh, wow. Perseverance.
Perseverance. Wow. You must.
We've had to persevere and push through those moments. Like I said, when hubby was like, things are looking tight, maybe I need to go get a security job at night, blah, blah, blah. And just that perseverance and that push through to say, no, we're going to make this work. We're going to make this work. So,
it's not an option to get out of it.
No.
Continue.
There was no plan B. Plan A must work.
That's right. That's commitment too, right? One last question.
Sure.
What words of wisdom would you tell the women listening today and being on the verge to being bold and moving into this opportunity of being their own business owner?
I would say number one, be very, very clear of what it is you want to do and how you want to do it. And don't be afraid to ask for help and set up the team that will help you pull it off. Because no one person can do it all. And no one person should do it all. And many times as women, right, we're nurturers, we're givers, we're very hard workers. And sometimes we don't know how to ask for help. It's very important that when you get your vision, that you build into that vision the people and the entities and the things that will be necessary for that blessing of business not to be burdensome. And after that, just be ready to put in some hard work and be life-giving to the team you've built. And I promise, if you give good service, no matter what it is, because people don't come back to your business because it's fancy. They don't come back because you have the bells and whistles. They come back because you gave them great service. Really committed to excellence at its highest level. And if it's something you don't know, find it out. Go get it. Knowledge is, I call YouTube University. Anything you want to know, it's out there for you to know. So just be encouraged that what you have been given, the idea, the thought process, that you are capable to bring it to pass. I didn't believe that totally about myself till about halfway through my journey. So believe in yourself, put the hard work in, and you will be successful.
Unexpectedly successful. Right. Last item. How can people find you online on social media?
Yes. So my website is gi-clean.com. That's my company's website. You can always reach me there. And then to email me, it's getgiclean@gmail.com. So you can reach me there. getgiclean@gmail.com.
And for those people interested in learning the detailing business, what would be a next step for them to take?
Reach out to us. We have a Facebook page that we created years ago, and you can reach out. My husband checks that pretty frequently, and people reach out to us on that page. GI Clean is the name of the Facebook page. They reach out to us all the time. It's a detailers page where they communicate with each other, and it's just grown exponentially over the years. He started it and didn't realize it was going to be this great resource. But yeah, reach out to us. Facebook page or Instagram, and he'll get back to you. He'll answer any question that you have. He's very, very open that way.
Awesome. Well, Sherry, it's been a pleasure and an honor to have you in our podcast, Unexpectedly Successful. Thank you for sharing the raw and genuine stories of being a business owner.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.